One of the key things that we have been seeing in my area, and that is the area that specifically looks at the security of our clients when they are using our online digital services, is a massive increase in online fraud over the past, or fraud attempts rather, over the past couple of months. The first level of lockdown, level 5, the fraudsters were also in level 5, it seems, but then when the rest of us went down to level 4, they went down to level 0. So it's not only small businesses and big businesses that are embracing the new digital approach. A lot of fraudsters, it seems, are also keen at making use of these opportunities, and that can be very, very dangerous for our clients. What we've seen specifically is that, we have a lot of security to protect the bank against hackers. So what the fraudsters have done is they have decided to go for the weakest link, and that is the clients. It's far easier to hack the client than it is to hack the bank. And obviously, we put as many controls as we can into our digital solutions, but at some point, there's also a level of responsibility that the client also has to, at the end of the day, observe. So, opportunities are big, so are the risks. And one of the things that has changed as well is that you will not know who your client necessarily is if you're dealing with them online. So for that, I can just say welcome to our world. One of the key issues of any information security posture is that you have no idea who is on the other end of the internet. And trying to figure that out is a big, big challenge, and that is why all sorts of measures have been introduced to authenticate the individual, and we'll go through some of those measures that will keep you safe as well. And then obviously staff working from home, and that makes them more vulnerable to hacking attacks as well. You have less control over possibly over what happens at a staff member's house. So keeping the home office secure is the first issue I'm going to be talking about, and some basic principles that you should rigorously adhere to for home office workers, including yourself. And the first one here is that nobody should have administrative rights, or should work with administrative rights. If you are a user who has admin rights on the computer for his work purposes, those admin rights should only be invoked at such times when you actually need them. Otherwise, you should make use of an account that does not have admin rights. And if a staff member of yours does not need admin rights, then they should not have those, because that allows all sorts of things to happen on the computer that will lessen the amount of control that you have over it. The next one is to keep your antivirus software up to date and your operating system and software patched. All those security updates that Windows rolls out, especially on what they call Patch Tuesdays, those are very, very important to adhere to. It's also very important that you make use of the latest antivirus software that's available, and that you keep that antivirus software as up to date as possible. And just on the antivirus software, if you have a Mac, you still need antivirus, and that's not debatable. So you need to use for network, you need to use strong passwords on your computer and both your router. You need to become an IT security specialist. Your firm may not be able to afford a dedicated IT security specialist, but for the level of security that you require, there is nothing that prevents you from reading up, doing research. It's a very big topic, but you definitely can upskill yourself in IT security. Sometimes we just think about electronics, but investing in a shredder is also a very good idea. We have what we call rubbish bin surfing, and where fraudsters can get access to your rubbish that you chuck out, and if there are documents in there that contain private information, then obviously you need to make sure that they are you can get into trouble. So yeah. So the next item, and that's something that Terence already spoke about a bit, is malware. That's maliciousware. That is viruses, trojans, and the like, all the nasties that you can get on your computer. And here I want to start that off with a little video.
Malware. Malware is designed to hack a computer or gain access to sensitive information without the owner's consent. Fraudsters send an email that looks as if it comes from Nedbank. The email contains a link or attachment, like a bank statement, for example. These attachments are fake, and they contain malware which is downloaded onto the user's computer if they're clicked on. These files often have an exe or cab extension or are contained in archives such as zip files. Once the malware is downloaded, the fraudsters can gain access to your computer, view your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. Fraudsters also make use of email spoofing, where they create an email that looks like a Nedbank email address. Clicking on a link in a suspicious email, buying fake security software, granting remote access to your PC to strangers, or visiting an infected site can increase the chances of your computer being infected by malware. Beware of any attachments that end in exe, zip, cab, htm, or jar. These are executable files that allow malware to be loaded on your computer without your knowledge once you click on them. Be careful of files that prompt you to authorize an action to execute, install, or upgrade software. Ensure that you have Trust Here Report on your computer. This online fraud protection software is free to all Nedbank clients. Also ensure that you have reliable, up-to-date antivirus software installed on all of your computers. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Okay, so how do these pieces of malware end up on your computer? So the first way in which that happens is that fraudsters send emails that look like Nedbank emails when in fact they're not. And these emails have attachments that contain malware that can infect your device when you click on them. And when you click on the attachment, the malware is downloaded onto your device without you even knowing it. There's also software that prompts you to authorize an action to execute, install, or upgrade software. Sometimes fraudsters may trick you into clicking on the attachment through fake proof of payments or bank statements, and for these you have to be very careful. They may even call you and offer you help in downloading fake security software. I mean, we've had clients who have been phoned by Microsoft who's detected fraud on their computer. Ladies and gentlemen, in case there was any doubt, Microsoft will never phone you to tell you that they've detected a virus on your computer. And then once your device has been infected with malware, there is a lot of things that these fraudsters can do. They can gain access to all of your stored information. They can record everything you type, and that would include all the passwords as you type them. You might see little dots on the screen when you type the password, but they will be able to actually read the password. And that obviously includes your internet banking login credentials and all your other credentials as well. So on the next slide, we see an example of such a malware email that's supposed to look like a Nedbank statement that's been emailed to you. And one of the first things that we see there is that the attachment looks a bit weird. It says proof of payment, .cab. And you have to there are quite a few types of attachment types that you have to be careful of, but especially those that end in .exe, .zip, or .cab are executable files. And once you click on that file, you will be able to install malware onto your computer. And that obviously is something that you need to avoid at any cost. How do you tell where it's coming from? Well, no, you don't look at the email address where it's coming from, because that is extremely easy to what we call spoof, to imitate. So even if it says business@nedbank.co.za or NBB notification at nedbank.co.za, that does not mean that that is where the email originated from. If you look at the subject, very often the subject of these emails is something that they want to use to entice you, or sometimes also to scare you. So it can be an email that says there's been fraud detected on your computer. If you also look at the subject line here, notice the incorrect punctuation. That's one thing about the fraudsters. 99% of them can't spell. So that is always a dead giveaway that it isn't from us. So if we look at on the next slide, the main things that you need to keep in mind is not to open attachments or links from unknown sources. You have to be aware of attachments that end in .exe, .cab, .htm, or sometimes also .jar, because they often contain malware. If you click on an attachment and it asks you to execute or install or upgrade something, don't do it. And if there are any hyperlinks, and we're going to get to phishing soon, if there are any hyperlinks in the email, just hover your mouse over the hyperlink to see where it actually takes you, because the hyperlink, what you see on the screen, might not be the actual hyperlink. If you hover your mouse over the hyperlink, you'll see the real address that you'll be taken to if you click on that hyperlink. And then you need to ensure that you have a firewall and up-to-date antivirus software installed on all your devices. Next, we come to email hacking, which is something that was already touched upon in one of the previous questions to the previous speaker. If we look at what email hacking is and how the fraudsters gain access to your email account, more often than not, they send phishing emails to gain access to your email, to your usernames and your passwords, and that they then use to hack your email account. And how you avoid this is you should never enter your email credentials on a website accessed using a hyperlink that you received by email or SMS. Especially some of the smaller businesses, you might be running everything on a Gmail account. If that is the case, then you should use two-factor authentication, such as an SMS notification sent to your cell phone to protect your email account. If you have a domain registered and you have email addresses linked to that domain, you have to be double sure that if you receive an email, say, from your service provider to say there's an issue with your account, that you do not log on to your online account via any hyperlink that was sent to you in an email. In general, hyperlinks in emails are scary things, and for that reason, Nedbank will never send you an email with a hyperlink that will take you anywhere where you need to enter your credentials. And a question we often get is, how do the fraudsters get your email details? So you may have used the credentials of your email account to register on a website that was hacked and your credentials were stolen. Your computer may have been infected with malware, and that malware could also have accessed the password to your email. And you could also be tricked into clicking on a link or an SMS that says maybe you've run out of storage space or that you need to validate your credentials to prevent your emails from being deleted. So what to do if your email account has been compromised? You need to change your email password immediately, and not on the same device, because it could have malware on it, but on a different trusted device. Smartphones and tablets are less prone to virus infection, so it's a good idea then to change your password on your smartphone if that is possible. And then the actual device on which you access your emails should be checked for malware and disinfected by a specialist. And disinfection is actually one of the options. The other option is to completely reinstall everything on your computer, and that is generally, sometimes that's overkill, but in general that's actually not a bad idea if that's at all possible. And then you need to inform all of your email contacts of the situation and ask them to flag any recent emails that they received from you. And last but not least, you also need to call the contact center, our call center, as well as your banker, your financial planner, suppliers, any other persons with whom you have a financial relationship. Because once these fraudsters are inside your email address, there is no limit to the amount of damage that they can do. They have samples of your letterheads. They know that you play golf with a particular supplier, and they can use all sorts of, insert all sorts of chit chat into correspondence with that supplier, for instance, that will make him completely lower his guard. And obviously, the obverse of this is also true. If we look on the next slide, dealing with customer emails, you might also be the victim of somebody else's email account that's been hacked. So if you receive any request from a customer via email, you should always contact them through another channel, and the best one is still to pick up the phone and just confirm that request. And if the customer contact numbers have been changed or updated recently, that's also something that might have to trigger alarm bells with you. And if that happens, then maybe you should contact the customer on the old number that you had for him first. As per usual, look out for grammar and spelling errors. Sometimes the criminals create a very similar looking email, but to what you used to read, but be on the lookout for subtle differences. The next topic I'm going to touch on is phishing, smishing, and vishing. And for that, we're going to look at a video first.
Phishing. Criminals use fake emails to get your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. You get an email with a link that directs you to a fake website where you're requested to enter your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. Scammers use these details to get access to your accounts. Smishing. Fraudsters send you a text message which tells you to click a link that sends you to a fake website. The site requires you to enter your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. To keep yourself safe, don't open attachments or click on links in emails or text messages from unknown sources. Nedbank will never ask you to log onto internet banking through an attachment or link in an email. Never give your card PIN, online banking PIN, or password, or your Nedbank ID password to anyone. Vishing. Fraudsters call you pretending to be an employee from Nedbank and try to trick you into giving them sensitive information. Sometimes they use caller identity spoofing so that calls look like they're from Nedbank when they're not. If in doubt, ask the caller to send their request to you in writing or offer to call back. Don't return the call using the contact details they give you. Rather use the official Nedbank details, which you can find at nedbank.co.za. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Right, so what happens with phishing, vishing, and smishing? So if we start off with phishing, that is when fraudsters send emails that resemble Nedbank emails, but they are in fact not these emails. And if we look at an example of such a phishing email, there we see a typical phishing email, and there you can see that the email address has been spoofed. It says Nedbank, but actually it's from another email address. That might be the case and that might not, but definitely be on the lookout for strange-looking email addresses. Then you can see that the Nedbank, so-called Nedbank email contains numerous errors on it. Spot the mistakes in there if you have the time afterwards. And then lastly, of course, we see that there's a hyperlink where it says that you have to follow that to update your account on the new Nedbank platform. Now, like I mentioned previously, we will never send you a hyperlink that will take you to a site where you need to enter any credentials. So the moment you receive such an email, that should automatically let the warning bells go off. We've also seen phishing in the COVID era. Here's one that a website that we've seen recently, COVID-19 debt assistance. We definitely offer debt assistance to clients, but if you follow that link, you are definitely going to get into bigger trouble than you might already be in. So the fraudsters have embraced all sorts of COVID themes over the past couple of months, and because what we call social engineering, and that is the art of hacking, not a computer, but hacking the human behind the computer. Because social engineering, a large aspect of it is based on fear, and we all fear the situation, we fear the virus, we fear the economic situation, etc. That just helps the fraudsters to commit to get you to click on that link. And then obviously once you click on the link, you will be taken to a fake website. And on the next page, we'll see how such a fake website might look like. And you're asked to type in your details, and then you asked to take to go to the next page where you're asked for even more information, such as, for instance, your cell phone number. Number capture, and that the fraudsters can then use if you're making use of the retail solution. They can then do something with your cell phone number, for instance, a SIM swap, or they can phone you and convince you to accept the approve it message. And once the fraudsters have taken over your account, they can then add themselves as a beneficiary. So we have two-factor authentication on all of our solutions, but what we have seen is there are a couple of ways in which the fraudsters can override that two-factor authentication, and that all has to do with security on the client side of things. The first thing they can do is to do a SIM swap, and that is to convince your mobile network operator, your cell phone company, that they are you and you need a new SIM card. And then that message is going to be sent to the cell phone with the new SIM card in it. Fortunately, Nedbank makes use of a SIM swap detection system that is able to detect this type of event. But you still have to be very cautious of SIM swaps. And quite interestingly, SIM swaps are not just something that happens to the banking sector. I spoke a while back to a colleague from one of the cell phone companies, and he says that SIM swaps are used in all sorts of different scenarios as well. For instance, they dealt with a customer of theirs who before had placed a large advertisement in a newspaper, and then before a long weekend, the fraudsters then went and did a SIM swap on his cell phone number, which was in the advertisement, and all the calls for that advertisement actually then went to one of his competitors. So there's no limit to some of the funny stuff that people can do out there. The other way in which fraudsters can take over your approve it message is to convince you to accept it. And unfortunately, we've seen that a fairly large number of clients accept these approve it messages that go to their cell phone without actually reading what is on the message. So, and for that, they specifically will make use of phishing, which we're also going to be talking about. And what phishing is the same thing as phishing almost, where you receive an email, but in phishing, you receive a voice phone call, V for voice. You receive a phone call and somebody on the other end who pretends to be from Nedbank then takes you through a whole story that there's been something that's happened to your account. So you have to be very, very cautious when you receive a phone call. And usually once they've talked you through this scary situation, the next thing they say is, well, for security reasons, we are now going to send you an approve it message. And you receive an approve it message. Meantime, they've actually logged onto your account and they just need you to accept that approve it message for the beneficiary to be added to your profile for them to be able to make the payment, the fraudulent payment. And very often clients, they're on the phone and they're not really paying attention. They may be scared of what they've just, what the fraudsters have just told them, and they just accept the approve it. So if there's one takeout that everybody needs to go away with from this webinar, it's that you should always read all security messages, not just approve it, but any security message where you're required to authenticate something, make 100% sure that what it is you're authenticating is what you think you're authenticating. Now, the business solution, Nedbank Business, or NBB as we call it, is a separate solution from the retail one that provides some extra security. And Herman has already talked about the AVS service that is included in Nedbank Business, but Nedbank Business also has a whole bunch of other features, and one of the biggest ones is actually the token. It's a dongle that you plug into a USB port on your computer, and you actually cannot access internet banking on the web without that token being inserted into your computer. It also allows you, if you have multiple users with rights to your internet banking profile within the organization, to set user rights per feature and at account level. So, for instance, somebody might only be allowed to capture transactions, and only the financial officer is allowed to authorize that transaction. Obviously, something that I'm not going to go into big detail as well is in this presentation is the aspect of internal fraud. So, we've put our staff members in home offices, and that does create occasionally the risk of internal fraud as well. As much as we want to trust everybody in the world, times are tough, and you need to make sure that the absolute maximum security levels are in place that you can possibly carry out. What is good about why the token is better than or more secure than the second factor authentication on our retail solution is because it is a combination of something you have, which is the token with a certificate, and something you know, which is the token PIN and the login password. The fraudsters do not have the token, so they would actually have to gain access to the token in order to defraud you. And you can also lock down your internet banking to a specific IP address if you have a fixed IP address within your organization. But you also have to be very, very careful about how you go about handling the token. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind with the token is that you still need to make absolutely sure that you have the very best antivirus software on your computer. The second thing is that you should not keep the token plugged in at all times. You should only insert the token into your computer when you're going to be transacting on Nedbank Business, because there is a risk that through malware, the fraudsters might gain access to your computer. They might keylog your credentials, and the token is already inserted into the computer, which means they can remote into your computer and transact on behalf of you. Just a bit of a summary then on the next page on how to be safe. Never share your card PIN or banking login details with anyone. That's one of the things that the fraudsters do. And if your mobile device has been lost or stolen, we're used to phoning our mobile network operators the moment our phone has been stolen, but you actually, with all these stuff that's on your phone nowadays, including your banking app, it is actually very, very important, if your mobile device is stolen, to contact your bank as soon as possible. You need to read every approve it message very carefully before you accept it, and if you receive a one-time password or OTP, as a two-factor message, you should never share that with everyone. You have to be very cautious about clicking on links in an email or SMS. And an SMS, we do not see that as much as vishing and phishing, but smishing is where you receive a fraudulent SMS with a hyperlink. And then if you lose cell phone connectivity for some time for no apparent reason, or you receive an SMS for a SIM swap that you did not request, you have to contact your mobile network operator as well as the bank by calling us as soon as possible on our helpline number. And if you suspect that your information has been compromised, you need to report it immediately by calling us. If you receive an email, you should hover your mouse over the hyperlink to reveal the actual URL. If that email you received is on a cell phone, for instance, you can achieve the same result if you long press on the hyperlink inside the email. And before you're entering your card or other personal information on any site, you have to look for the lock icon in the toolbar. And you need to check that this is a secure website. In other words, it should be HTTPS and not HTTP in the web address. Terence also spoke about that previously. It's also always better to type in web addresses yourself rather than clicking on links in an email or an SMS. And you also have to be extremely vigilant with social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, and never share your personal information on public pages. So, I've seen people sharing very happy about some document that they've just received. They've just registered a new company, and they're actually holding the registration document on the in front of the camera and then placing that on Facebook. So as far as online purchases are concerned, if you're making a first-time purchase online, do some research, check the online reviews, use secure payment systems like PayPal, or consider using one for just one card for online purposes purchases only. So keep the amount of money or funds that you have available on that card to the absolute minimum, and only use that card to do your online purchases. Like I said previously, make sure that you have the latest antivirus software installed on all your devices, and don't do online shopping on public Wi-Fi or unsecure networks, because fraudsters can easily hack these. Also, if you receive a suspicious email, you need to forward it to phishing@nedbank.co.za and delete it immediately. Next, I want to talk about a couple of schemes that we're seeing at the moment, schemes and scams that are very prevalent at the moment. Some of them are old, some of them are more new. The first one is the beneficiary maintenance scam. And this is a scam where you receive a letter or a fax or an email on your beneficiary's letterhead telling you that their banking details have changed, and they're going to request that you make your payments into a new account. And what you have to be very, very careful thereof is that this might be a fraudulent email, and you end up paying that sum of money into the fraudster's account. So you should always confirm that with the organization who supposedly sent you the email that they, in actual fact, have changed their banking details, and confirm what that account number is. If you receive banking details by email for a once-off payment, always confirm these details telephonically before making a payment. Beware of near identical email addresses. Sometimes the fraudsters don't hack an email account, but they create an email account that is very similar looking to the email account of the person that they're impersonating. And also hover your mouse over the email address to make sure that the response email address is the same as the sender's email address. And that can also be a big giveaway. When you're doing banking, try and make use of bank-defined beneficiaries. Those are the beneficiaries that Nedbank has already preloaded onto its system. Those go through an extremely rigorous process of checking to make sure that that is the actual account number of that organization or institution. And then also check documents for grammar errors and suspicious changes. And next we're going to be looking at another video.
Deposit scams. Deposit scams happen when fraudsters offer to buy goods or services from you and then send you altered or fraudulent teller receipts, deposit slips, or internet payment confirmations to convince you that they've made a cash deposit or EFT into your account. Then they request that you release the goods or render services to them. If you rely solely on the proof of payment and release the goods or services, you may find that the payment was made with a fraudulent check, which is returned a few days later. The scammer disappears and you never receive payment. Don't be tricked into believing that a cash deposit or EFT was made. Always check your bank statement and make sure the funds are available, or use the Verify Payment tab on internet banking to verify any Nedbank payment. If you receive a check as payment, wait for it to clear before you release any goods or render services. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Okay, so the next scam I want to talk about is a refund scam. And this scam involves the use of altered or fraudulent receipts or internet payment confirmations to trick you into believing that a payment has been made into your account. So the fraudster is going to ask you to refund them the money that they paid into your account incorrectly, and then they disappear with your money. So if we say, for instance, Mr. N runs a building supply company and he has regular customers that buy building materials from him and settle their accounts at the end of every month. But then Mr. N checks his bank statements and he sees 23,000 Rand reflecting, and he instructs the accountant to refund the 10,000 Rand. Then Mr. N received an email from one of his customers saying that the accountant made an error, and instead of paying 13,000 Rand they owed him, she paid 23,000 Rand. They would like him to urgently return the overpayment. He instructs the accountant to refund the money, and a few days later he notices a debit on his account, and that what happened there was the payment was made with a fraudulent check that has now been dishonored. So the fraudsters have disappeared with the money, but for those of you who have been following the news, checks are on their way out. So to a large extent, this particular fraudulent modus operandi is going to become a thing of the past. So how to be safe on this one? Never rely on a proof of payment alone. Always confirm the payment. And you can use the Verify Payment service, AVS, available on internet banking to make sure that you're making the payment into the correct account. And for those of you honestly still accept checks as payment, wait for the funds to be cleared before handing over the goods. And remember that bank guaranteed checks can also be forged. And then the last scary thing, and this is one that is currently extremely popular among fraudsters, is the tender scam. What happens there is the criminals send you an invitation to submit a government tender for the procurement of an item that is so rare that if you Google it, you will only find the fraudster's website. So, for instance, if we look there on the right, you receive an email from the Department of Health saying we are urgently looking for the B087Q atomizer machine. And there is a complete shortage of them internationally, and because of the COVID situation, we absolutely need this device. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as a B087Q atomizer machine. The fraudsters have gone and created a website that sells such a device. And if you go into Google and start Googling for a B087Q atomizer machine, the only website that you're going to come across is their website. And you're going to contact them, and you're going to be all excited, and you're going to contact the Department of Health, which are actually, in this case, not the Department of Health, but a bunch of clever fraudsters. And this way, you're going to say, okay, great, you've received the tender, you put in the order, you pay the money, and then you never see that money again. You contact the Department of Health, and they say, well, hang on a second, we never sent out an email like this. And if you also then contact the supplier, he's disappeared into thin air. So, yeah, how to avoid this? The first thing is get real, ladies and gentlemen. This is like people who think they win the UK lottery without having actually purchased a lottery ticket. No government department is going to reach out to you out of the blue asking you to participate in a tender. And the second principle is one that is also important in all sorts of other situations, and that is that when you're sourcing products on the internet, you always need to do proper research, and you have to be extremely careful of shady-looking products or shady-looking websites. So do your research, actually do a Google map search and see if there's actually a building at this address that they claim to be at. And do other inquiries, see if there are reviews for this organization online or not. And I mean, how is it possible that in the entire world there's only one website where information is contained about a device like the B087Q atomizer machine? It's just, it is highly improbable, but yet we see on a almost daily basis clients falling for this type of scam. Obviously, on our side, we run various detection systems, and sometimes we can see that you've paid money to a shady company, but that becomes very difficult in certain circumstances. So, do your research, make use of AVS if you have NBB, and do due diligence with, and do not expect any government department to send you an email to ask you to participate in a tender. So that is all on my side. Over to you, Herman.
Lucas, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is quite a lot of information, but I think if there's one thing, and I think Lucas will agree, that you really need to take note of, and all of us need to take note of, is that you always have to be alert, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be savvy and know what are the trends. And that was really our intent, to share this information with you so that you can share with your staff to be on high alert, so that if they pick up any signals of the examples that Lucas shared, that they must immediately escalate rather than to too quickly react on a request. We have a couple of minutes for questions, and just again to confirm, the content, the slides will also be shared with yourselves. That's the reason for this session, not just to for these 2 hours to expose you to it, but to also share the content with you so that you can use that for the protection of your organization. There's one question from Nico van Jaarsveld from Might Ocean Proprietary Limited. Nico, thank you. Nico mentions that the account verification service is good protection. But then the question, how can banks prevent fraudsters to open new accounts at the outset? Now, in other words, verification at the start. Now, Nico, I think that's where the FICA process comes in, and all the hoops that we need to go through to make sure that when we open an account that we know the client. We have an abbreviation, we use KYC, know your client. And that's exactly what that's about. Sometimes to the frustration of clients because in order to make sure that it is authentic, the client and the account is authentic, in order to protect our other clients, we have to spend due diligence and make sure that the right account is opened and that it is an authentic entity behind that. But Lucas, do you maybe want to mention just something else on Nico's question?
Yes. So yes, that is a question we receive the whole time. How do the fraudsters manage to open these accounts? And how do they manage to circumvent KYC? Well, the answer is that they don't open the accounts themselves. They approach somebody on the street, and pay that person 200 Rand to go into a branch, open an account, and then afterwards hand the card and the PIN to that account over to the fraudsters. And obviously that person who goes into the branch, he's not impersonating anybody. That is really who he says he is. So they pass all the KYC and the account gets opened and the card then gets handed over outside to the fraudsters together with the PIN for the card. I mean, that is something that is extremely prevalent across the industry. We're seeing that, but everybody else is seeing that as well. It is one of the things that we specifically are on the lookout for when we perform our fraud detection behind the scenes.
Thank you, Lucas. Maybe another quick question from Nico, and this is a question whether fraudsters can gain access to the token certificate.
So the token certificate, how the fraudsters always, I mean, there are certain ways, I guess, in which the fraudsters could hack. The main thing the main way in which they could gain access to the token certificate is actually by gaining access to your computer. And that is what we have seen on one or two occasions over the past 6 years or so, is that the fraudsters gain access to the token certificate by accessing your computer, and that happens as a result of a malware infection, a Trojan that gets installed on the victim's computer. So I cannot repeat how extremely important it is to keep your antivirus software up to date, get the latest version, upgrade to the newest version, and make sure that those virus definition files are downloaded on a regular basis, daily basis, hourly basis.
And maybe to add to that, Lucas, again, it was mentioned earlier how important virtual private network is, VPN, especially now in this context with employees working from home. And actually one of the added security features on the Nedbank Business electronic banking platform is the IP address and the time limitation for people to log on to Nedbank Business. And what does this do is it actually allows the employer to force the employees working from home to dial on through a VPN and not in an unsecured way. Just another question, Nitesh Harry Sprinters. How safe are password managers to be used across the organization? Will it help to eliminate the problem if users are writing down their passwords?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question and a very interesting question. Password managing software solutions are actually a great thing. We actually encourage organizations and users to make use of password managers. The trick then just is to make sure that you keep your password manager extremely secure. There are solutions out there where you can actually host your password manager on your own infrastructure. But the question then is how is that possible that is more secure to put all your passwords in one nice basket for the fraudsters to access them? Well, the thing is, the biggest reason why passwords get compromised in our time is because people reuse the same password very often, and they create very simple passwords that can be hacked. And quite honestly, a modern secure password, you should have a secure password for every single facility that you access. It should be completely different. And I know of no person who can possibly keep all of that information in their head. So it's better to have a password manager create these extremely long 20-character passwords that consist of all sorts of non-printable characters, etc., or rather squigglies and hashes and exclamation marks, and that you couldn't possibly remember yourself, and have a separate password for each one of your facilities, and then just put all of those into the password manager, and then you just have to go through the effort of remembering that one extremely secure password for your password manager. Preferably, you should also have second-factor authentication around your password manager. But yeah, it is definitely good practice, but you just have to know what you're doing in terms of keeping your password manager secure.
Lucas, thank you. Just another comment from Ian Lewis from CSS. Ian, good to hear from you and good to have you on the web. Ian mentions, and Lucas, you also pointed it out earlier, that, and maybe this just accentuates the importance of we have to be vigilant, that when you follow up with a call, just to make sure that when you speak to that individual, that you actually know that individual in the organization and not just speak to anyone. So just ask more questions to make sure that you speak to the right person. We are unfortunately out of time. As mentioned, there's still a lot of questions, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that. But we will share the information after this webinar. And maybe just to conclude with that, ultimately, it is important to stay abreast of all the trends and developments. And hence the reason for us sharing this. That's why it's also important to, as a business owner, really understand and be in the detail of what's happening in the business and what's happening in your accounts, and that your staff are also very much aware what to be on the lookout for. We mentioned the security on Nedbank Business. We can still expand a lot on the security features. There's also the ability as business owner through the Nedbank Business mobile app to actually be mobile and remotely be on top of what's happening in your business and in your accounts. And then I think also important, another feature, final transactional information, usually abbreviated as FTI, which really gives you as a business owner the ability to have very good host-to-host reconciliation of the statements on your accounts and to really see what's happening on the entries.